Octane. Octane has recently become one of my favorite legends. Just in these last few seasons, I've been using him, and I was really hoping that he would get a buff in Season 5. Sadly, that is not the case, and we actually end up with a pretty low overall score for Octane, and here's why. Tactical. Octane's tactical movement and reposition, I'm only going to give him a 1 here, because when stimming, you lose health, there's an audible cue for the enemies to know where you are, and this really doesn't give you much in the way of an advantage, only is in speed. So for here, I can give it a +1, maybe a +2, but repositioning and rotating, and I only see it as a +1 here. As far as engagement and retreat, I'm going to give him a +2, and the reason it's not a +3 is because you lose health, the audible cue that the enemy can hear, so for those it knocks it down to a 2, but having that increased strafe speed or increased speed to run away or to engage in a fight, that's a fantastic thing, and that really helps with Octane. So for that, we'll give him a +2. As far as teamwork, the stim does nothing to help your team. It is solely for your purpose, and so there, we'll give it a straight 0. Octane's ultimate. So movement and reposition, we can't give it a +3, so we're going to give it a +2. A +3 would mean that it works in all regards, and it's very good and one of the best. But for Octane, his ultimate, it's very easy to see as if you're an enemy, and it's extremely easy to shoot them down. The way you go off the bounce pad is extremely predictable. If anything, it's very damaging when pushing an enemy unless they're unexpecting it. But then there's an audible sound that lets the enemy know you're coming. As far as engagement and retreat, I'm going to give him a 0 here just because I don't find that it's all that useful. You could give him a +1 and argue that he's a level 10 in overall score, but to me, his ultimate's really weak right now, especially for if you're running away from a fight. Bounce pad isn't really going to save you. They're still going to be able to track you and shoot you. It's quite predictable. As far as teamwork, I'm going to give this a +1. Pathfinder's ultimate can get you into places much better. Wraith can move you secretly and safely and securely. This one, I'm going to give it a +1 here. I feel like his ultimate could use some rework, if anything, if they're going to change on him, but we'll get into that later. Octane's passive. +3. Octane, the ability to heal himself slowly, I find phenomenal. Some people could argue that you should knock this down to a +2 because his passive kind of cancels out with his tactical because it takes away his health. But to me, I find it so useful when you're in an intense situation or a fight that you're slowly regaining health. You don't always have to constantly use syringes and other things to bring yourself up to max health. You just eventually get there, and I think this is fantastic. As far as teamwork, this doesn't help them in any way. So sadly, overall score for Octane is a 9. He's going to be a D-tier legend. I think he's slightly underpowered and could use a bit of a rework. For Octane's rework, I would change his ultimate and or his passive. I think his ultimate should give you some sort of health, maybe health boost when you take it, so that way it counters out his stim, or he can go further when using his bounce pad and his stim, or he can ADS in the air and not have the terrible accuracy debuff. Maybe his bounce pad could go higher and further. Something here could work really well for teamwork. If you all hit the bounce pad and gain an extra 25 shield, that'll give you a huge advantage in pushing an enemy team. And I think that's fairly reasonable considering Revenant's ultimate and the way it works. So something with his ultimate, maybe his passive. His passive is pretty helpful for him, and I find that it works just fine. I have seen some things online that say that his passive should be he never gets slowed, as in heavy bullets, caustic traps, Watson fences, he can't be slowed. And I think that would be a huge buff and change possibly even ranked play, with an Octane being able to push into a fight and just shut down an enemy team even if they have Watson fences. So he could still take the damage, but being able to just push into the room and take over an area would be a huge plus for him, and that could move him into the B, possibly even A category.